Welcome back. You're watching AM This Morning. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to our partner Mazda. It is 11 away from 8 o'clock. Controversial British activist Posie Parker, that's what she goes by. She's issued a warning to our Prime Minister.
So, Chris Hipkins, roll the dice, my friend. I don't think you'll dare to keep me from coming into New Zealand. But we'll see. We'll see.
The decision is with Immigration New Zealand. Chris Hipkins is with us now. Prime Minister, good morning. Do you have any update on this situation?
It's a matter for the officials. It's not something that I'm going to intervene in or get involved with. Ultimately, whether someone meets the good character test or not to enter New Zealand isn't something that I would get involved in.
Yeah, do you think she's threatening to sue politicians like yourself, media, for calling her anti-trans? I mean, have you actually, in all of the comments you've made about her, can you give me an example of one thing she has said that you're not happy with?
As I indicated very clearly yesterday, it's not something I've spent a huge amount of time on, and I don't intend to. I believe in free speech. People are entitled to express their views. People are entitled to condemn other people whose views they disagree with. No one's entitled to incite people to do, to violence and to things such as that. I'd encourage everyone, when they're exercising their right to free speech, to do that responsibly. That's part of living in a community. But we have rules that protect free speech for a reason.
Totally. It's interesting because your response to this is different to that of your predecessor, who I spoke to about this many times. You're saying, actually, so long as you're not inciting violence against a particular group of people, then you should be able to go and say what you like.
That's not necessarily what I said. I said that people should exercise their right to free speech responsibly. I don't think people should deliberately go out to offend other people or to attack them or to ridicule them or to persecute them. I don't think that that's what responsible human beings should do to other people. That's not very nice. But in terms of what the law says, there's a clear line in the law around what you can't do, and I respect the line that I respect that line.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. Talk about this report from RNZ this morning about your Chief of Staff, Andrew Curtin, who was doing some lobbying on behalf of a lobbying firm for liquor companies. And he was hired by your office, the announcement coming one day after he resigned from doing this. And you have since ditched a particular policy, the container return scheme, which a number of these companies had an issue with. Has he ever influenced your decisions around policy?
No, the reprioritisation process had started before Andrew Curtin started in my office, and that policy around reprioritisation, in the case of the container return scheme, deferring implementation of that decision was made before, that was put into the process, that was put into the mix for reprioritisation before Andrew Curtin had even started in my office. I was very clear with him when he started, and I'm absolutely confident he's done this, that he needed to end all of those relationships. One of the reasons the announcement of his role in him starting was relatively close together was because he needed the time to make sure that he was extracting himself from all of those previous relationships in terms of his previous work before he took up the job.
Had he spoken to you about the scheme before he started in the job?
He hadn't spoken to me. I think he may have spoken to other people within the government.
Right. So your Chief of Staff was lobbying your fellow cabinet ministers on a policy which you ditched once you hired him. It doesn't look good.
Well, for starters, we haven't ditched the policy. We've deferred the implementation of it. My understanding of the position that he was taking as a lobbyist was actually in favour of the container return scheme. The issue was around the price, whether it should be 20 cents or 10 cents. Again, I wasn't involved in those conversations.
Yeah, it was the whole scheme. It was the design of it, that it was a very poorly designed scheme that would, quote, to quote RNZ again, would be a matter of substantial hurt to one particular liquor business in New Zealand. So can you appreciate, from an outsider looking in, it all looks a bit, I don't know, it looks a bit suspicious?
Oh, look, as I've indicated, that process was well in train before Andrew Curtin started in my office, and I'm absolutely confident that he has removed himself from any of those past relationships that he had in terms of his lobbying work. That's an appropriate thing for him to have done. One of the reasons that we have, good transparency around this is that, people can form their own judgments on it. So we have ministers releasing their diaries so that people can see who they have met with and who they've been lobbied by, and of course we release those communications. The reason that the media is able to scrutinise these matters is all of that information's been publicly released.
Or OA-aid, as was the case here. Did you declare to, when you hired him, did you say in your press release this guy used to be a lobbyist for Big Liquor?
I think his previous background working in government relations was certainly included there. I think people will understand government relations does include lobbying.
But you didn't proactively, I mean, you're talking about proactive release and transparency, you didn't proactively release transparently that information.
No, we didn't release his client list. No.
All right, let's talk about TikTok. Obviously, there are some concerns, security concerns about TikTok and its relationship to the Chinese Communist Party through various different companies. Do you know of any of your MPs who are using TikTok? Be it on, I know we've got parliamentary services saying on Parliament phones. Do any of your MPs use TikTok on their personal phones? Does that worry you? Have you told them not to?
Not that I am aware of. I haven't told them not to, although I expect them to follow the Parliamentary Service guidance, which has now been issued in recent days. And of course, most of them will use a Parliamentary Service phone, which means that if they have it and they haven't removed it, it'll be removed at the end of the month. So I'd expect them to follow that guidance.
All right. Stuart Nash, Ginny Anderson, obviously the replacement. A lot of people saying she's not experienced enough. I mean, it does seem quite a big jump up for her, but obviously you think she can handle it. You said that yesterday. Just with Stuart Nash, do you think, are there any more revelations that have come to light about Stuart Nash that worry you?
None that I've been made aware of, and Stuart is well aware that he needed to let me know last week if there were any additional things that might cause concern.
All right.
So he's had a good long think about that. He hasn't flagged anything else up to me.
Okay. Now, quick questions because the issue's a bit last week. But are there any other MPs you're aware of in your party right now who've breached the cabinet manual?
Not that I am aware of, but I've certainly reminded all the ministers at Cabinet on Monday that I expect them to be familiar with the Cabinet manual. I expect them to make sure that they're brushing up on it because I don't want to see further issues like this in the future. Have
you had any conduct issues with your MPs raised with you when you started in the job as Prime Minister?
No, not so far.
Okay, apart from the one with Stuart Nash?
Well, clearly, apart from that one, yes.
And when were you told about that?
Oh, it was at some point last week. I can't remember exactly where in the week that all of that unfolded.
Right, so you weren't told about that issue before or when you started as leader? There was no sort of handover, a dossier on your cabinet minister's faux pas?
No, the legendary little black book doesn't seem to exist. If it does, I've never found it.
Are there any other issues with any of your MPs in terms of their behaviour or conduct or adherence to the Cabinet manual that you're aware of that the public right now is not?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. No, that's cool. I just thought I would check. Hey, just before we go, one more thing. We had the Greens Party co-leader on the show yesterday talking about the state of the planet, etc. And this idea of a excess profit tax, I know you don't like doing the rule in, rule out game, but that's not something you're going to consider at the election, right? This windfall profit thing?
Look, as I've indicated before, Ryan, our position on tax will be very well articulated before the election. People will know exactly where we stand on tax. They'll know what we're ruling in and what we're ruling out. I'm not doing that today. I'm not doing that ahead of the budget. I'm not doing that ahead of the election campaign. But we will certainly do it ahead of the election campaign. We'll make it very clear to people exactly where we stand on all of those issues.
All right. For people who are watching this morning and wondering, where is Chris Hipkins? Normally he comes to us from the Beehive Theaterette, but today you're in your electorate office. Do you want to give us a little tour? We've got about a minute.
I am I am in my electorate office. I don't think we can do a little tour because I'm kind of currently shut in one room and all the doors are locked and the lights are turned off so that I can do this. But my day today is in the Hutt Valley where I'm going to my old primary school. I'm heading up to the Marae and Upper Hutt where I'm being welcomed onto the Marae and Upper Hutt. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
Is this a sit-to-stand desk that you're standing next to? Do you do a sit-to-stand?
This one is. Indeed, yeah, indeed. They're very good. It's very good for your posture.
All right, Chris Hipkins, the Prime Minister, at his sit-to-stand this morning in Taita in the Hutt. It is 8 o'clock. You're watching AM.